You have been hustling day and night on your marketing, trying to generate leads for your business. But despite all this, your lead generation activities feel like a never-ending abyss. Either you're getting leads and they're not closing and you don't understand why, or you're putting yourself out there and just hearing crickets, nothing, but you don't understand why. Which is annoying because you know your solution, your product, your service is epic if only people could understand that as well.
You're goddamn right.
And you've seen other people generate leads out of thin air and you don't understand what they're doing and why it's working for them and why it's not for you. Well, don't worry, stop beating yourself up. It is not your fault. The market is filled with magic bullet, generic type advice. This advice either doesn't work or it doesn't work for your exact situation. It's not necessarily a problem with your efforts, it's a problem with the advice that's failing you. But here's the good news, I have a solution for you. This guide is not another mainstream manual, this is the ultimate guide to lead generation. I have dedicated the last few years of my life to figuring this thing out because it was a massive problem for me, and I've distilled it down to its simplest and purest form, and I put all of my learnings that have generated huge amounts of leads, not only for myself but for other people, into this video. This guide will take you from scratching your head and either not knowing what to do or not understanding why it doesn't work, to being able to generate a predictable and consistent stream of inbound leads for your company. We're going to go through the single core most important factor when it comes to lead generation. We're going to go through the pros of good lead generation, the cons of poor lead generation. We're going to go through what the most common mistakes companies make and how you can avoid those. And I'm going to talk you through how to set up a strategy for lead generation for guaranteed success. And then I'm going to talk you through tactically what the best approaches are for lead generation, and not only how they work, but why they work and when you should use them. By the end of this video, not only will you be a master of lead generation from a strategic point of view, but you will be a guru in that you will understand why lead generation works and how to adapt it for your exact business, your exact situation. If you follow these steps, I guarantee you are going to conquer lead generation.
And here we go.
So what are the pros of good lead generation? Well, lead generation fuels your pipeline, your business. It is required for growth. If done properly, it attracts high quality leads to your business, leads that are pre-sold and want to buy from you. It means that you can have people coming to you rather than you having to constantly chase them. That is obtainable. And once you have a system in place, you can not only automate it, but you can also scale it. It can become like a dial that you turn up, down, off, on when you need it to fuel your business. It's predictable, and that is king. Also, lead generation done properly passively builds brand awareness, visibility, and trust. It sets you up as an expert in your field. So those are the pros of lead generation, but what are the cons of lead generation? So firstly, it can be massively overwhelming when starting out, especially when you don't understand what the most efficient approach is. Poor targeting can lead to low quality leads, which can waste a lot of time and be really frustrating. Even a perfect strategy can fail if there isn't enough volume behind the approach. And linked to that, it is a volume game. All of lead generation is just the maths equation. You're essentially going to reach out to X amount of people or put your offer in front of X amount of people. A certain percentage of those people are going to respond. A certain percentage of those people are going to schedule. A certain percent of those people are going to show up to the calls. A certain percent of those people are going to close, etc., etc. The numbers drop off. When people start out, often they believe that they're going to reach out to people and everyone should love their offer because it's the best thing ever. But there's a load of external factors. People are in different states and situations, and as a result, that's not how it works in the real world. So you just need to understand that a lot of volume is required to work your way through the percentage drop off at each point of the process. In addition to it being a game of volume, it's a game of consistency. You need to do this over a long period of time to make it work. Some people struggle with these, and ultimately mindset can be one of the biggest issues when it comes to lead generation, because sticking to an approach to get through the volume and consistency is one of the hardest things to overcome. I really hope you are enjoying this video so far. If you are, and you could consider leaving a like or subscribing, honestly, it'd be greatly appreciated. And if you have any questions that have come up so far and you want them answered, pop them in the description, pop them in the comment section, below, and I'll get back to you personally. Hope you're enjoying it. Let's continue. So understanding those pros and cons, what are the most common mistakes that people make when it comes to lead generation? Well, the biggest problem is that they massively overcomplicate their value proposition. They can even get leads in and not follow up with those leads. They don't nurture the things that are coming in. They ignore their customers' pain points, their customers' desires, and make all of their messaging about themselves. They make it about their own services, about how great they are, etc., etc. Another very common mistake is relying on one source of lead generation, and this can genuinely be catastrophic for your business. I say that because it's happened to me. So I used to rely entirely on network and referrals for my business to grow. And don't get me wrong, for quite a few years, like 6 to 8 years, that was fine. But then when that network that I built, it all came from the same network, when that reached its sort of boundary, and when those people I knew moved on to other jobs that didn't need me anymore, or different people came in, or they changed their strategies and wasn't needed, you lose those clients eventually. And what happens is, if you haven't got a controllable system to generate new leads and bring them to you, ultimately you're f***ed. And then linked to the cons I said a minute ago, there's no volume and there's no consistency. So a lot of companies or small business owners just getting started out, doesn't really matter. They'll try an approach, but they will try it like half-heartedly. So I often see people trying cold outreach where they'll message people with their offer, and I'll say, they'll tell me that it didn't work, and I'll ask them, well, what did you do? And I end up finding out after about a minute's worth of conversation that they actually sent about 10 cold messages to people, didn't hear back, and then said, well, it doesn't work. In reality, you probably need to send about 1,000 messages to learn what sort of message works and what approach works and your target audience and all these different pieces of information. And to send 1,000, you probably need to do it pretty consistently for like at least a few weeks. Most people don't have that consistency or volume to punch through the initial figuring out all the detail and all that kind of stuff. You have to do that. Even if you have the perfect system laid out in front of you, you still have to apply volume and consistency. And it's a huge problem and mistake that people make in just not doing that. So now that we understand the most common mistakes, we can look at what we need to avoid. So this is what we need to avoid. We need to avoid spammy tactics that annoy leads. Not only is that not going to generate us leads, it's going to do the opposite of what I said about in the pros section. It's going to turn people off us big time. It's going to destroy our brand, our reputation, and it might bring us visibility, but it'll be bad visibility and bad rep. Additionally, we need to make sure we're not ignoring the data. We need to use the data to our advantage and then optimize based on that. It's very easy, especially early on, to make gut decisions based on emotion. And quite often, surprising, but quite often I can see someone has run an approach and it objectively was working. I've done this myself, to be fair, and you turn it off because of some emotional reason rather than the fact that it wasn't actually working. There's something else in there. So we need to avoid being emotionally driven, and we need to ideally be driven by the data and optimize based on data. Also, we need to make sure that we're investing in channels that align with our audience. So if you're a B2B consultant speaking to investment bankers, it's probably not that wise to invest all your lead generation activities in TikTok, where the audience is very, very young and it's just not that sort of sphere. It's probably wiser to invest in going to networking events where those people are, or going on LinkedIn, etc., etc. We need to make sure that our offer, our audience, and our approach all line up in the same way. So if we're B2C and we're targeting people who are maybe like 21 and we're selling like some sort of newfangled swimsuit, probably a good idea if we spent most of our time on TikTok and Instagram rather than LinkedIn. It sounds obvious, but I mean, some people don't get that. So we just need to make sure that our audience channel, etc. line. Sometimes it's more subtle than that example, to be fair. Next up in things to avoid is impersonal messaging. We don't want messaging that feels generic. Messaging works really well when it feels to the person reading it like it is specifically about them. This can be achieved in a myriad of different ways I'm going to go through later in this video. And another thing, I touched on it earlier with the cons and what the mistakes that people make, but we don't want to overcomplicate our value proposition and our messaging. I cannot stress enough, we need to avoid convoluting our messaging. If you can make your messaging insanely simple, and the litmus test for this is, if you gave your messaging, whether that be ad copy, whether it be a cold email, whether it be a cold call script, it doesn't matter. If you could take that to a 5-year-old, like a child, and say it to them, and they could understand what it is you're talking about, you're probably doing good. If you go to a child and you try to explain it, and they just look at you blankly, and it takes you like 3 hours to explain what it is you do, and then at the end of that they still don't understand, you're going to struggle big time. So make sure you avoid overcomplicating your messaging. One of the most common issues I see, and we're going to avoid it from now on. And lastly, I really want to hammer this down because you don't understand how important it is. We really need to avoid trying things in low volume with low consistency. But that's just not part of our mindset anymore. We're not going to do that anymore. So now it bears the question, is lead generation right for me? Like my existing thing kind of works. Like we get people in through network and referrals, it's fine. Do I need to do lead generation? Well, ultimately the answer is yes. Really, you don't have a choice. If you want to control your growth, you need some form of lead generation in place. And whilst as an example, network and referrals is great, that's something that's sort of out of your control. You can't control that to the extent that you could control maybe running ads or doing cold email outreach or something like that. The key is we need to find a lead generation system that's going to align with your company, you specifically, because you're going to be doing it, and also aligns with your target audience. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the foundations first, and then we're going to look at some strategies. Now, if you feel a little bit overwhelmed and you just want someone to just deal with this lead generation stuff for you, or you want someone to handhold you through the whole process so you're sure you're on the right track, my company Tech Growth Marketing is currently offering free growth strategy sessions. You can apply for a one-on-one call with me. We'll go through your exact situation and help map out what you need to do to get to whatever goal it is you have. This is for companies who are looking for that one-on-one personalized help. It's part of our paid services, but the first step is entirely free, that strategy call. If you want to book it, link in the description below. So the foundations of lead generation. Before we jump into this, I just want to make it very clear, you really should not skip this section. It is insanely important to understand the foundations before we jump into all the tactics and the strategies. And the reason is, most of the time, that's what you do, and that's what most people do. They skip to the shiny object, the tactic, the little detail, and they completely miss the foundational principles that make it work, and they don't understand that. So watch this section, it's very, very important. So firstly, if we want to nail lead generation, we're going to start with market research. We need to understand our audience's pains and their desires. The good news is, if you already regularly speak to your target audience, or if you were your target audience before becoming a business owner and setting up a product or service targeting those people, you probably already know this stuff in your head. Now, not only do we want to understand the pains and desires of our target audience, but we need to understand that in the language that they use to describe those things. If we can repeat back to our target audience their pains and desires in a way that articulates it better than they can think of it themselves, we're going to have a really easy time with our lead generation. If you don't really, deeply, truly understand what your audience's pains and desires are, then you haven't really nailed market research yet, and as a result, you need to get it nailed and you need to go back and do some market research. So how do we execute market research? Well, we have entire videos dedicated to this, which you can go and watch if you want, but as a high-level quick overview, we want to go to places that our target audience hangs out, and we just want to fly on the wall, just look at what's going on in those spaces. So for example, if we were targeting small business owners, we can go into small business owner Facebook groups, and we would just scroll down the list of all the posts that people are putting there and all the comments. And we just look at what people were commonly saying when it came to their pains. Like, oh, I'm really struggling with this and this is how I feel about it. Or, oh my God, this thing just happened and it was amazing. That's probably a benefit that they want. That's one way of doing it. Another way would be we could approach people in our target audience and we could just one-on-one interview them. We have a system of questions we need to ask them, and it asks about, well, what is it you're after, the state you're currently in, blah, 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 blah. We ask all these different questions and that can give us the information we need to inform our messaging. Now we have a system built out for market research as part of our controlled growth framework. As I said before, if you want to speak to me about that, there's a link in the description below. Also, we have those videos on the channel if you just want to work through it yourself. Now, once we've done that market research and we genuinely really understand our target audience, we need to come up with an offer. An offer is basically a summary of what it is I provide. Everything I spoke about earlier when I talked about making sure our value proposition was really clear and concise, this is that. So there is a structure you can use to formulate an offer. It's very, very simple, and this is it. We help target audience, so the name of your target audience as they describe themselves, achieve result, and that's a desired result, a tangible desired result that it is they want within time frame. There's a time period they can expect to see that result. That grounds the statement and gives it some sort of context. And then we're going to say, and the best part is some sort of guarantee, and that guarantee removes all risk to the prospect. An example of this would be, we help SaaS founders, that's the target audience, achieve 30 new demos per month, that's the outcome they want, within the next 30 days, that's the time period to make sure they can get that objective within that time period, grounds it. And the best part is, if you don't get those demos within the first 30 days, we'll work for free. That's a guarantee, sweetens the deal, ties it all up. The offer is the most important factor when it comes to your lead generation. Do not make it weak, do not skip this. This is the thing that's going to carry everything else. Make sure you nail that statement. Now, once we have the offer, we also need a hook. The hook is the first step of our sales process. So in that example I gave you a second ago about SaaS founders, that's the outcome we've got, fantastic, that's our offer. But how do we drag people into that? What's the first step? And the first step is our hook. Examples of hooks are free consultations, free demos, free trials. It's the first step of them getting to that outcome, and it's usually given for free. Now we need that hook so that when we promote that offer to people through whatever medium it is that we use, we have something to filter them into so that they understand where they're going and so that we also understand where we're pushing them to. And just be aware, the way that you frame your hook can make a massive difference. So now we have our offer and our hook. We ultimately understand what it is we're going to provide to people, and they understand that because it's really easy to understand. And we have a hook. That's the first step in pulling them into that offer. Now what we need to do is we need to prove the offer and the hook. So to do this, we're going to present those things to our target audience and see if they resonate with it, see if we start getting responses, see if we start getting leads, and most importantly, see if we start getting sales. This can be done via any medium. It can be done by cold email, Facebook groups, Facebook ads, content. It can be done by cold outreach, any medium at all. But there are some criteria that need to be met. So firstly, your target audience must be present within that medium. Secondly, your target audience must not only be present, but they must also already engage on that channel. And finally, it must be compliant. So for example, if we wanted to do cold email, we can only do that to B2B because you're legally not allowed to do that to B2C, at least in the UK. Here's some advice on choosing a medium. Firstly, your existing network, that's people you already know, either directly or through other people. Your network will bring you the quickest wins because those people already know, like, and trust you. And that element of knowing, liking, and trusting you is everything that sales and marketing is about. So to have those three things ticked already means you're going to have an easy time. That, by the way, is why you find network and referrals so easy and you struggle with other things, because network and referrals is easy mode. You've already got the three core things ticked. Next up, cold outreach systems are best if you are money poor and time rich. And conversely, paid systems such as advertising are best if you are money rich and time poor. And some things you need to be aware of. Be prepared for this not to work. Yeah, we've gone through the system, we've got our market research, we understand our pains, desires of our audience, we have our offer and our hook, and we're going to put it out to people in a place that they already are, they already engage with, and it's compliant, etc., etc. Be prepared to do that and then it doesn't work. That's fine. It's absolutely fine if that happens, because what we're doing is we're doing volume and consistency, remember? And if it doesn't work, we're just going to go through the cycle again. We're going to go, well, we need to tweak our offer a little bit. We need to tweak that message a little bit so that it does work in the future. So we're putting that offer in front of people, we're testing it, but we need to make sure our messaging is right. We've got the offer and our hook, and that messaging is at its core very important, but there's more messaging that goes around that. There's a lot of fluff that goes around the whole thing. So no matter what outreach system you're using, you need to follow the following steps and pieces of advice. Firstly, keep your messaging short. If you send a cold email and I have to scroll several times to get through it, that's not going to work. Keep it short, succinct, concise. Next up, no matter what it is you do, keep your messaging simple. And I've said this a lot, I keep saying it because it's very important. And finally, make all of it about them, not about you. If you really nail those three things, you'll have a good time, your messaging will be epic. So next up, we can look at automating lead generation. Now we've gone through that process of setting up our hook, our offer, and testing it and finding, oh, we made some tweaks and now it's actually working. We can start to automate the process to make it more scalable, so we can keep going and going and going. No, we want to do this when it's predictable and reliable. So when we've gotten to the point of our offer, our hook, our messaging, we put that in front of people through whatever medium we've picked, and we know that 5% of the people we send that out to are gonna respond. We have a predictable and reliable source of lead generation sorted. Fantastic. That is the goal, but now we want to take it up a level. So that is when you start automating. So you need to understand that anything can be scaled. So if you look at content, for example, if you started by creating LinkedIn content and that's where you started testing that messaging, it started to work, we can scale that up. We can do more of that content. We can put that content on different platforms. We can adjust it so that instead of it just being a LinkedIn post, it's a blog post or it's a video on YouTube, etc., etc. We can do more of that thing that's working to scale it up. With email, we could quadruple the amount of emails we send out every week. Let's say we were doing direct messages on Instagram. We can start to hire virtual assistants to send messages on our behalf. But the easiest system to scale by far is ads. The reason being, with ads, we can just put more money into the machine and we'll get more results. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not always that simple. There are limits in terms of ad platforms because there's only a certain amount of people on the ad platforms. But to begin with, at the very least, we can set the system up, it works, we spend more money, we get more leads. It's that simple. All you need to understand is that we're going to take what's already worked and we're going to take that to the ads. Quite often what people do is they go through those first steps, they figure out the messaging and offer and everything that works, and they go to ads and they change everything. The messaging changes, the offer changes, they make it all about them instead of about the target audience. All of the principles that worked here, they drop them all because it's ads. I don't know why people do it, but they do it time and time again. When we go to the ads, all we're going to do is take what already works because it's proven to work and we're going to run it against ads. And also, yet again, we're only going to take it to an ad platform where the target audience is present and already engages. And I cannot stress this enough because people do it all the time. Don't change your audience, don't change your offer. Don't go, well, we've been targeting business owners between 1 and 10 so far in the consulting field, and it's worked fantastically. But we want enterprise level clients. We want companies of 1,000 plus CEOs in the financial sector. That's where we're going to run our ads to, because that is a huge change and it's not going to work, and people do it all the time. Don't be one of those people. Don't do it. So what are the best systems for lead generation? This is where we start to go from the strategy into the tactics. I'm going to cover what the most common systems are, when to use them, and what their pros and cons are. And before I jump into this, I understand it can be overwhelming. We have entire templates for all of this. So cold email sequences written out, start to finish. You can just take and use in your own situation. Or ad copy creative that is proven to work. You just copy the formula, landing page templates, everything you can think of as part of our controlled growth framework system. If you want to get on board with that, either we deliver it for you or we guide you through it with a consultation model. You can apply for a free growth strategy session via a link in the description below. So first up, cold email for lead generation. We only want to use cold email for B2B. The reason being, you're not allowed to use cold email for B2C. One thing to be aware of, at present, the time of recording this video, cold email is becoming less and less effective as more and more people seem to be using it. A load of tools have come to the market as of recent times, which have made it even easier to execute on this. And some information that was kind of shady and not shared that much beforehand has become a little bit more mainstream. As a result, more people are doing it and it becomes more white noise. So lead generation efforts through cold email have gone up. As a result, the effectiveness has dropped. As a result, still works, but you have to do even more of it to combat that. Or you can do something slightly different from everyone else and try and sidestep that, but just be aware of that with cold email. With cold email, we can use solutions like Lemlist or Apollo to automate and allow us to scale. Another thing to be aware of when it comes to B2B lead generation through email is that industries make a massive difference in terms of the response rates you're going to get. The reason being, some industries get targeted with cold email far more than others. So for example, we ran campaigns to video production companies, and we also ran campaigns to SaaS founders. We found video production companies way more likely to respond to their emails than SaaS founders. The reason being, SaaS founders are absolutely pummeled with emails on a daily basis. Video production owners still get a cold email, but nowhere near as much, so it's less white noise. Just be aware, industry has a huge impact. Next up, Facebook groups for lead generation. This is best for B2C companies or B2B that targets smaller company sizes. What we want to do is we want to go into Facebook groups and we want to warm the group up before we start our lead generation efforts. So we want to engage in conversations in the group, become a part of the community, and generally help everyone out. That helps build trust within that community. Then once we have that trust, we can look for posts that relate to the problem our service provides, and we can outreach to people who are highlighting they have the problem. Or we can start DMing people in that group who might have the problem we resolve. If you find that this system works for you, you can start creating your own Facebook groups to create your own pools of leads. Next up, content. Works fantastic for B2C and for B2B. I would advise starting with guides that are searchable in relation to your product or service. During the content, explain your offer and your hook so that you're giving a load of value, and then you also say, well, if you want more value, you can come over here. Just make sure there's a balance, so most of the content, like 90% of the content, is giving, and only a small percentage, like 10%, is scattered throughout there asking. Content, by the way, is a long-term game. Don't expect to post something and immediately see results. We started our YouTube channel, and realistically, it took about 6 months to get any sort of traction, and then it took about a year, maybe 2 years before things started to really click. So content can take a long time to ramp up. If you need a quick fire result, probably not the best thing. If you're looking long term and you want to start building something now, content can be absolutely fantastic. Also with content, it can bring you very, very warm leads because people have watched all your content. They've already been warmed up to you, and guess what? They should know, like, and trust you before they speak to you, which is a key factor. And for the more observant of you, you'll realize this is exactly that. This is a lead generation tool. I put out content helping you, and then I ask you if you want more help. By the way, free growth strategy session in the description below. If you haven't applied already, you probably should, but this is that in action. Next up, we have ads, one of my personal favorites. It's best done if you're either in your early stages, but you're funded, or you have a proven model and you already have money. It's insanely powerful for scale. When you're just starting out, I would strongly advise using lead generation forms. This keeps the capture of information on the platform. It's native to the platform. And as a result of privacy policy changes on Facebook and the Pixel and blah, 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 it's way easier to collect people's information native to the platform and then send them to a landing page after a lead generation form. Once you've got that sorted and you're getting leads in, if for whatever reason you're struggling to schedule those leads, I spoke about this ages ago in the video, seems like a lifetime ago, I know, but if you're struggling to schedule those leads, then what you want to do is you want to switch to a landing page sequence once the system is proven and works with a lead gen form. If you're going B2C, the answer is probably Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google Ads. I'm sure there's other solutions as well, but that's where you're going to look. If you're going B2B, LinkedIn is best in terms of high quality leads, but it is more expensive. Facebook and Instagram can work for B2B. Don't get rid of it. It can work, can be very, very effective, but just be aware the lead cost is lower, but you get way more junk in there. You're always going to get more junk than you are on LinkedIn because people being on LinkedIn automatically qualifies them to a certain extent because only people who are like dedicated to their careers tend to spend any time on LinkedIn. So they self-qualify, whereas on Facebook, anyone's on Facebook. So you tend to get lower quality leads mixed in. Just be aware, entirely possible for B2B, but that's how that works. So now that we've understood all that stuff, I'm going to go through some frequently asked questions. Just so if you have anything, I can clear them up for you. If your questions aren't answered and you still need some help, just drop a comment in the comment section below and I'll get back to you. So if there's something that you haven't covered, you're not entirely sure of, you just want a quick answer, pop it below. So the first question is, and the most common one I hear is, how long until I get results? Honestly, it's variable quite dramatically. So it depends on the system you've chosen. So for example, if we chose content, probably have to wait a long time to see that return. If we chose cold email or cold calling, the response is going to be pretty damn quick. Same with ads, we're going to get a quick turnaround. So that's going to have an impact. And also we need to look at volume and consistency. So if we start that manual outreach system of trying to prove our messaging by doing cold email, it's about how many cold emails we send, not how long it's been. So if I sent 100 emails in a week, it might take me like 6 weeks to learn if it works. If I sent 1,000 in a week, I'm going to get there way faster. So it's entirely variable depending on your own efforts. Next up, what do I do if my leads are unqualified? Well, if your leads are unqualified, there's probably something going wrong in the funnel. Usually it's something wrong with your messaging. Either your messaging is sort of subconsciously attracting the wrong people, or you're putting that messaging in the wrong place. It is almost impossible to get 100% qualified people coming through to your offer. But if everyone is unqualified, then I guarantee you are doing something wrong, and you just need to look at what could possibly be wrong and again, be led by data. Start making changes. Oh, these changes led to more qualified leads. Probably a good thing we should follow that path. So there we have it, the ultimate guide to lead generation. Not only do you understand all the tactics and techniques that are required, you understand foundationally the principles that are required and that drive successful lead generation. But I have one more question for you. Do you want to set up a complete client acquisition system within the next 30 days without having to waste your own time trying to figure out the most efficient advertising or marketing method? With the best part being, if you don't have a consistent and predictable stream of inbound inquiries by the end of those 30 days, will work for free for you. If you want that, if that sounds interesting, then you can apply, as I said before, for a free growth strategy call via a link in the description below. It's part of our system called the Controlled Growth Framework. It is a game changer. We've distilled everything that you need into a very simple process that either you can take and deliver yourself or we can deliver for you. I'd be really interested in speaking to you about your business. So if that is of interest, just apply for the free call below. And also, if you have enjoyed this video, if you could consider leaving a like or subscribing, it would be greatly appreciated. I hope you have a fantastic day, and hopefully I'll see you again soon.